I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that, or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly, right? And all these books are going to tell us.
Like, do you think that were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial, or was that just a bad debate? Like, what is your read on that?
Well, this is what I mean about cover up is a very loaded term, I think.
Well, it means you knew that it was really bad and you're pretending otherwise, versus you're deluding yourself, which I think is what people do a lot.
Well, I understand, but I still think it's like cover up is often like a crime, right? We're talking when people use that term.
They say it's worse than the crime.
People use that term as they relate to Watergate, or the covering up of not sharing public information about a war.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime.
I understand, but other people have used that term, and I think it's a bit of a dangerous term.
Yeah. Look, anybody who's been paying attention to Joe Biden knows that he's been retarded for the entirety of his career. Since the 70s, totally dumb. I mean, the dude is so old. He was born like less than 4 years after the air conditioning was invented for the automobile. The guy was born closer to the end of the Civil War than to present day, and he was potty trained by the time Hitler had blown his own brains out in the bunker. He's old enough to remember the Nazi broadcast from Hitler in Berlin. I mean, the guy is ancient. Always dumb, always totally incompetent. Even senators and other leaders and presidents have said for years that the dumbest person in the Senate was Joe Biden, and it's obvious. But we knew that he was in mental decline for an extended period of time. He didn't seem quite right ever since he was the vice president of the United States. And Jen Psaki's up there saying, I didn't notice there was anything wrong with him until I saw the debate at the end of June. First of all, Jen Psaki's not a stupid person. She's a liar. She's a very competent liar. She's a dishonest person. She's obviously brainwashed, malnourished of some sort, needs a bunch of methylene blue to compensate for the amphetamine red under which she's operating. But look, there's only two ways to look at this. First is she's telling the truth, and she's the most incompetent press secretary in the history of press secretaries of the United States of America, and she wasn't aware that everyone was pumping Joe Biden full of Adderall and other drugs to keep him operational in the face of his mental decline. She's perhaps the most incompetent press secretary because she didn't realize that Hunter Biden was texting others about her father's dementia diagnosis before he was even president of the United States. Are they seriously going to run him? How's his mental decline going? How's his diagnosis going? I mean, this is something that we've known for an extended period of time. Anybody who's been paying attention realized that Joe Biden lost his gourd. Out of his mind, totally delegated the entire White House Oval Office operation of the executive branch to committees, to staffers, to bureaucrats, to this bureaucracy that Donald Trump has become a great threat to. They said time and time again that Donald Trump is the greatest threat to democracy in our nation's history, but really the fact of the matter is he's the greatest threat in our nation's history to the bureaucracy, this corrupt cabal of staffers and incompetent elites and bureaucrats and intelligence operatives that have been running our national security and our domestic policy for 50, 60, or 70 years, basically ever since World War II was completed. And so for her to come out and say, hey, that's a loaded question. Yeah, of course it's loaded. It should be loaded. What you did was loaded with evil and corruption and just incompetence and inherently beneath everything that the United States of America stands for.
Methylene blue is all the rage. But for my listeners, we've been talking about it for decades. But finally, they've got factories. They've got laboratories that are producing medical, pharmaceutical, USP grade. And so, our sponsor, thealexjonesstore.com, has it right now, the very highest quality. And I've taken USP grade before, and they claim it's USP grade, and it works great. Massive energy, clarity, focus, no letdown. This is 10 times better. I'm actually scared of this because I've seen Robert F. Kennedy Jr., take 3 droppers on Air Force One. I took half a dropper and I'm bouncing off the walls hours later. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the very best methylene blue I've ever had at the lowest price, and it funds the InfoWar, a total 360 win. So get your ultra, and it is ultra, methylene blue right now at thealexjonestore.com.